Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are taking a pretty dramatic shift away from global markets. We're sinking our teeth into the surprisingly complex, often frustrating, and, well, absolutely essential world of local government.
We are. We're heading to the city of Gilroy, California, incorporated way back in 1870, famous for its garlic.
And their motto, a community with a spice for life.
And that spice is, it's everywhere in the documentation we've got. Our source material is the Gilroy City Council agenda, staff reports, and the minutes from their meetings in December 2025.
Okay, so the full package.
The full package. And our mission today is to give you a shortcut, really. We're cutting through hundreds of pages of municipal bureaucracy.
To get to the good stuff, the critical financial commitments and the high-stakes public policy debates that define life in a mid-sized American city.
Exactly. Our stack of documents, it reveals the entire breadth of what it means to run a city.
I mean, we're talking about everything from negotiating multi-million-dollar federal grants to divert youth from the justice system,
To solving massive infrastructure failures caused by wire thieves.
and then navigating these incredibly sensitive public debates over civic identity, like which flags should fly at City Hall.
It's the ultimate balancing act. For you, the listener, understanding these local decisions is the real deep dive into how resources are allocated, how compliance is met, and ultimately what the priorities of your local community really are.
So where do we start?
Let's jump right in by looking at one of the most proactive and well-funded areas, youth justice and social services.
Right. This is where the city is making a massive investment in its social fabric. Gilroy is leveraging over $1 million, specifically a $1,049,952 Title II grant.
And that's from the Board of State and Community Corrections, or the BSCC.
$1 million, that's a huge commitment.
It is. It's a colossal 3-year commitment running from 2023 through March 2026. And the funds are all for the Restorative Justice Youth Diversion Program, which they call RJYDP.
Okay, so if you strip away the acronyms.
If you strip away the acronyms, this program has one core goal: keeping eligible kids out of the juvenile justice system.
And we're talking about youth aged 12 to 17 who've committed lower-level offenses. Not serious crimes, but the kind of thing that can, start a cycle.
Right. And what stood out to me was the sheer ambition of their targets.
They're not just aiming for participation.
No, not at all. They are aiming for success. The city expects to divert 80% of eligible youth and have 90% successfully complete the voluntary program.
And if they do that, the citation gets sealed. Their record is essentially cleared.
Exactly. And the mechanism they're using for this is particularly modern. It's all built on trauma-informed care and restorative practices.
Can you explain what that restorative justice circle process actually looks like?
Well, it moves away from just punishment. Instead of just, punishing the offense, the restorative justice circle brings together the people who were harmed, the person who caused the harm, and community members. The whole process is designed to repair the harm, understand the root cause, and establish accountability in a way that reintegrates the youth rather than isolating them.
What's fascinating is how much coordination that must take. You've got community-based organizations like Youth Alliance working directly with the Gilroy and Morgan Hill Police,
The Santa Clara County Sheriff's Department, and the local school districts. That kind of multi-agency partnership is incredibly hard to pull off.
Yeah. And speaking of Youth Alliance, they seem to be central to the city's whole social health strategy.
They really are. The council agenda shows they are also heavily involved in the opioid crisis response. The city awarded 2 separate grants totaling $237,352 from the Opioid Settlement Fund.
Right, and that's split between Youth Alliance and another organization called Carry the Vision for opioid remediation services. But that's not all Youth Alliance is doing.
Not even close. There was a separate, pretty significant contract approval for them, $130,105 from 14 cents for something called Project THRE.
And what's that?
Project THRIVE focuses on school-based youth services. It specifically targets young people aged 9 to 20 in high-disparity areas.
So it's about intervention.
It's about sustained support. It's designed to provide crucial, weekly one-on-one case management, which they internally call life coaching. That's often far more impactful than a one-time thing.
Okay, so we've covered these critical social investments, well over $1 million. Now, let's pivot hard to the physical reality of running a city, the infrastructure.
Yes, because this is where the financial shocks hit, and they often come from things completely outside the city's control.
You see that so clearly in the contract for traffic signal and streetlight maintenance?
Absolutely. The city council was forced to approve a major unexpected Second Amendment of their contract with Calwas Lighting and Signal Maintenance.
And when you look at the numbers, major is definitely the right word. They had to increase the contract compensation by a staggering $215,000.
For just fiscal year 2026.
Wow. That one increase pushes the total 3-year contract value up to over $1.3 million.
And if you ask why, the staff report just provides this cocktail of bad news. They cite an unusually high number of unanticipated equipment failures, plus, the predictable traffic accident damage.
But hold on, the report specifically mentions wire theft? Wait, $215,000 in unexpected costs, partially because people are stealing copper wire.
Yes. That is an unbelievable price tag for a crime of opportunity. It's a huge liability.
And a part of this is actually good news.
In a way. The cost increase is also partially driven by success. The city launched an app feature called C-Click Fix within Gilroy Connect, which lets citizens easily report problems.
And it worked too well.
It worked so well that the volume of service requests generated by the community just blew past all their estimates, driving up the required maintenance hours.
That is the irony of city management. You improve public engagement and your maintenance budget explodes.
And this contract covers a huge area. 33 city-owned signals, 11 Caltrans systems, and over 4,800 streetlights. That's a lot of metal and wire to protect.
Speaking of liability and costs, let's move from wire theft to trash.
Right. Gilroy is facing a mandatory federal environmental compliance task known as the MS4 trash mandate. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System.
This is one of those complex but crucial requirements tied to the Clean Water Act. Essentially, the federal government says cities have to stop pollutants, in this case, trash, from getting into our waterways.
And here are the deadlines the city council had to grapple with. Gilroy must eliminate trash from 30% of its priority land use areas by December 2, 2026.
Just 2 years from now.
And 100% by 2030. The catch: it's an unfunded federal mandate. The city has to figure out how to pay for it all by itself.
So how do they meet that first 30% goal? The staff analyzed a few options.
They did, and they recommended what they call Track 1 compliance. That means moving immediately with the physical installation of 73 connector pipe screens.
Which are basically giant strainers in the storm drains.
Exactly. They're certified full trash capture systems that physically trap the debris. The capital cost estimate for that initial 30% compliance, just for the screens, is $171,000.
Okay, that feels manageable.
Plus an estimated $51,750 a year for operation and maintenance. But it gets interesting when you look at the options they rejected.
Like what?
They looked at simple outfall netting systems, but those weren't certified or adaptable to Gilroy's specific outfalls. But they also studied hydrodynamic separators as a long-term solution.
And that's where the numbers get truly shocking.
They do. To achieve just the 30% compliance goal, using these hydrodynamic separators, these are large underground devices that swirl water to separate pollutants, the capital cost estimate jumps to $3.5 million.
$3.5 million versus $171,000 for screens, just to hit the first phase.
It just highlights the immense financial pressure cities are under to meet these regulations. The difference between two solutions can be millions of dollars.
And there was another option, right? A kind of bureaucratic one.
Yes, and staff was careful to steer the council away from it. It's the full capture equivalency option, or Track 2. This is where you try to prove that your existing street sweeping programs equate to full trash capture.
And that path is basically a trap.
Precisely. It involved high consultant costs, up to $250,000, just to develop the plan, and the Water Board views it as a last resort. They prefer clear, measurable results.
So Gilroy chose the certain, cheaper physical solution to meet its deadline.
Smart.
Very smart. Okay, after navigating those seven-figure decisions, let's turn to the essential, but often less dramatic mechanics of governance.
The administrative nuts and bolts that keep the city engine running.
Right, and we saw several key personnel changes and appointments being made.
We did. Mayor Bozo, for instance, recommended Councilmember Zach Hilton be appointed mayor pro tempore for 2026. That's a significant position. That person runs meetings whenever the mayor's absent.
We also saw the council consent to 2 interim leaders, Scott Smithy as interim police chief and Leanne McPhillips as interim HR director.
And both of these appointments operate under what are known as CalPERS retired annuitant rules. For you listening, what that means is that these experienced people are retirees getting a pension.
So the state limits how many hours they can work.
Exactly, usually 960 hours per fiscal year. It's a common strategy to maintain expertise during a long, high-level recruitment search.
It's smart, necessary bureaucracy. And we also saw some introductions of new staff, which is always good to see.
4 new employees were introduced, including a new code enforcement officer and a senior facilities maintenance specialist. These are the people who keep the city's day-to-day services running.
And speaking of running things, the council proposed an ordinance to amend board and commission terms.
So this is a subtle but important change. They're extending all current commission terms by 1 year to align every single expiration date to December 31st of odd-numbered years, 2027, 2029, and so on.
Why do that? Why go through the legislative effort for that?
Purely for efficiency. City council elections are on even-numbered years. By shifting commission terms to odd-numbered years, they avoid having recruitment overlap with the chaos and staff demands of an election season.
It's all about focus and hoping to boost community participation. Now, before we move on, there's one small item that really humanizes the relentless work of the Public Works Department. The council approved denying 3 liability claims.
And one of those was extremely detailed and relatable. A woman named Stephanie Moretto filed a claim for $11,125.71.
Why? What happened?
She hit a manhole cover that wasn't properly sealed on Leasley Road back in September. The claim was for her total loss and rental car costs.
You can just picture it, hitting a sunken or loose manhole cover. That $1,000 claim might seem small next to a $1.3 million maintenance budget.
But it shows how immediately and personally the physical state of the city's infrastructure impacts every single driver. It's a perfect illustration of how poor maintenance, even on one manhole cover, creates a direct liability for the city.
All right, now let's hit the policy front lines, the issues that brought out the public and really generated the most spirited conversation at this meeting.
And we start with public health and commerce, the downtown tobacco moratorium.
The council was asked to consider extending an existing urgency interim ordinance. This ordinance temporarily prohibits issuing new tobacco retailer permits, but only within the downtown-specific plan area.
And the background is what makes it urgent. The staff report cited evidence of unlawful activities found in existing downtown tobacco retailers. In April 2025, law enforcement confiscated not only flavored tobacco, which is illegal,
but also hallucinogenic psilocybin from these businesses.
Right. That was deemed an immediate threat to public health and safety, which justified the urgency ordinance in the first place.
But the discussion evolved from there.
It did. Mayor Bozzo weighed in, stating that having seen the extent of the problems, if he'd known then what he knows now, he would have requested a citywide ban from the start.
Not just a downtown one, a citywide ban.
That's a huge shift in regulatory thinking. And the council followed that direction. They voted to extend the downtown moratorium.
But then immediately directed staff to come back with a recommendation for a comprehensive citywide ban on all new tobacco retail permits for their next meeting.
They are signaling a major strengthening of their public health stance.
Okay, so from tobacco to the second major policy topic, the commemorative flag debate.
Yes. The city received only one application for 2026, which was a request to fly the progressive pride flag during June for Pride Month, including a ceremony on June 1st.
And the application met all the city's new policy requirements, so the discussion wasn't about approval.
No, the discussion centered instead on the location of the flag, which is really about symbolism and civic space.
Can you just quickly break down the symbolism of the progressive pride flag?
Of course. It's a deliberate symbol of modern inclusion. It adds black and brown stripes to honor people of color and those lost to HIV/AIDS, and then the pink, light blue, and white stripes specifically represent transgender individuals.
And the chevron shape.
The chevron points right to symbolize forward movement.
So you had this symbol of forward motion meeting tradition. One council member requested changing the policy, asking that any commemorative flag be flown on a new separate pole.
The stated rationale was respecting the tradition and solitary position of the American and state flags, but the public comment section was highly passionate.
Right. Community members, including students, urged the council to maintain the current practice of flying it on the existing City Hall flagpole.
They argued that raising that flag on the main pole is a vital, visible act of solidarity, especially important for signaling to LGBTQ+ youth that they are seen, valued, and central to the city's identity. It was a classic clash.
Tradition versus visibility.
Exactly. And that discussion really brings us to our synthesis. What does this deep dive into Gilroy's documents ultimately tell us about the job of city government?
It tells us the job is just this relentless balancing act. They're simultaneously managing million-dollar social investments like that youth diversion program.
while navigating unfunded, multi-million-dollar environmental mandates, like the MS4 trash capture requirement.
And at the same time, dealing with the immediate, painful public issues, the wire theft, the $1,100 manhole claim, and these deeply emotional policy debates about community identity.
It truly shows that local government is where theory meets reality. They have to allocate limited funds not just to keep the lights on and the roads paved, but to actively build a healthier, safer, and more inclusive community.
And that flag discussion, it provides a powerful final thought for you to consider as we wrap up. The city worked hard to streamline its processes, even changing commission terms just to improve efficiency. But when you look at that debate,
The debate over separating the American flag and the progressive pride flag, it raises a deeper question about the nature of civic inclusion.
right, when does honoring one community's specific identity through symbolic acts enhance, rather than detract from, the overall identity and unity of the city?
And in that push for administrative efficiency, do we risk overlooking the moments when complexity and passion are actually necessary for true civic engagement to feel meaningful?